Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, I will be doing the easiest to climb solo shuffle specializations. So which specializations are going to be the easiest to climb and get rating and start getting some transmogs, and which ones are going to be the most difficult. And the best part about this video is that it is based off of hard data. That is 100% what we're basing it off. It is not going to be based on opinion whatsoever. We are looking directly at the ladder, the representation, the population base, and determining which specializations will be the easiest to climb. And this takes into account a variety of skill levels, whether you're just jumping in for the first time, how likely is it going to be to climb, versus if you're really experienced. So let's get started. The first specialization, which we're going to be looking at on the 3v3 ladder, is the Blood Death Knight. The highest rated player is currently 1925, and within the top 100, the only thing you need to get to be top 100 as a Blood Death Knight is 700 rating. 700 rating. That means that it is incredibly difficult to climb as a Blood Death Knight, if not close to impossible. We can see with Mez at the top of it that, like, yeah, you might want to reconsider if you're going to be climbing as a Blood Death Knight. It is going to be stupendously difficult to climb the solo shuffle ladder. Next specialization up on the chopping block is the Frost Death Knight. What do you know? Mez on top again here, but now at a staggering 2672 rating. And with Frost Death Knights within the realm of the top 100 are going to be aiming in at about 1944 or 1950, close to about 2000 rating. So probably about middle of the pack for solo shuffle or for your expectations. The next specialization is going to be the Unholy Death Knights. And the Unholy Death Knight, let's see which one's performing going to be easier to climb with. Is it Frost or is it Unholy? Unholy, staggeringly 300 rating higher towards the top end of the ladder, but within the domain of top 100 is actually 2400 rating. That is almost 1,000. Pretty close to 1,000 rating higher. So I would say that your likelihood of succeeding in solo queue on Unholy Death Knight versus Frost versus Blood, insanely going to be a significant difference in your ability to climb the ladder with this specialization. Definitely makes a lot of sense with its utility as well, just to throw in a little bit of opinion as well. Now, Havoc Demon Hunters, this is going to be the show of the game here. 2,900, close to 3,000 rating. And scrolling into the top 100, we're not even dropping below 2,500 rating. So Demon Hunter, even easier than the Unholy Death Knights at climbing in the solo queue ladder. Moving on to the next specialization. What's it going to be? It's going to be the Vengeance Demon Hunter. And this specialization topping off at a massive 1,800 rating, which I think is the lowest we've seen so far. And within the top 100 is not even getting to 700 rating. So even harder than Blood Death Knight is it going to be to climb as a Vengeance Demon Hunter. Balanced Druid, the next one. I've been usually pretty positive about this specialization, trying to be like, you can make it work, you can do something with it, I'm sure it'll work out. We're going to take a look at it here. Balanced Druids, 2,700 rating top end, but as we scroll towards the bottom end of the ladder, so this is like new player experience towards the specialization, you can see that it's going to get a little bit tougher with 1,800, similar to the Frost Death Knight, which means we're going to be putting it in at about the same spot as the Frost Death Knight in the viability to climb the ladder. There are outliers, but if you're new to the specialization, it may be difficult. Otherwise, your top 100 would be a little bit higher than this. The next specialization is Feral Druid. Is it easier or more difficult? Feral Druid topping off at 2,900 rating, and within the top 100 is currently at 2,200 rating, 200 rating above the Frost Death Knights and Balanced Druids, which for me is going to enable me to say that it's probably an A-tier specialization for climbing the solo queue ladder. Next specialization is going to be the Guardian Druid, the bear form. It got nerfed heavily. Probably wasn't going to be strong even without the nerfs in this bracket, but let's see. Topping off at 1,900, so far the highest of the tanks. But towards the top 100 is clearing 1,000 rating, so significantly easier than the Blood Death Knight or the Tank Demon Hunter, so coming in a little bit better, but still about that 1K bracket. It's probably not going to be getting you into the C tier anytime soon. I love that this can just be based off 100% data and figure out what's going on with these specializations. Resto Druid, everybody's saying it's the easiest healer. Let's find out. 2,800 is the top end for this one, and within the realm of the top 100 is 2350 plus. So definitely an A tier specialization, probably bordering S, right? We had 2500 rating, so somewhere between A and S is going to be a great specialization for you to pick up in solo shuffle, regardless of skill breakdown, because we can see it represented within the top 100 as well as the top end as well. Moving to the next specialization, we're going to be looking at the Devastation Evoker. What's going on with the new class? What's going on with the new spec? 2750 top end, moving down towards the top 100, is cusping around 2000 rating, a little bit higher than the Balanced Druid, a little bit higher than the Frost Death Knight, which is actually a bit surprising. Wouldn't justify it going into the A tier, obviously, as it's not in that 2200 range. It's not in the 2900 top end range, but definitely is performing better than Frost and Balance so far. Now, let's move into the next specialization. This was a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest, with Devastation, is going to be Preservation Evoker. This one's topping off at 2861, similar to the Resto Druid, and as we get towards the bottom of the ladder, about 2250, so actually a little bit lower than that of the Resto Druid, which is surprising. So coming in about where Feral Druid is at the moment overall in terms of viability to climb, but Resto Druid being slightly easier. Now moving into the next specialization, as we've concluded the Evokers, is going to be the Beastmaster Hunter. How are the Hunters doing? This one is a real tough one, I think. Is it going to be performing in the middle, the top, or the bottom? 2864 is the highest rated Hunter in North America, moving towards the bottom of the ladder, 2100 rating. So actually a little bit lower on the B tier at the moment here, but still actually better than a Balanced Druid or Frost Death Knight, with them at 1800. So actually about 400 rating higher than that. It's close to putting it into as an A tier specialization, I would say, hovering between high B to A with a very minor difference between them. Maybe the cutoff here will be around 2200 in the top 100 to get into the A tier. But BM Hunter doing surprisingly well, considering Hunters to be taken as one of the weaker specializations in this bracket. Now moving into the next Hunter specialization is the Marksmanship, which is performing better. Marksman or Beast Mastery. We've got a Marksmanship Hunter at 2790 at the top of the ladder, and moving towards the top 100 is around 2134. So similar, but I think slightly worse. I'm just going to double check this. 2134 for the Marksmanship Hunter, and the Beast Mastery Hunter was it 2200? Beast Mastery is 100 rating higher on the top end and a little bit lower on the bottom end. So if you're more of a new coming player, Hunter is likely going to be a bit better of a selection for you than Beast Mastery Hunter. But on the top end, it seems like Beast Mastery is performing slightly better. So very close to each other here in the B tier. Now, Survival Hunters, 2868, pretty similar top end, but the bottom end cuts off staggeringly fast here as we move towards the top 100, only just barely cusping the 2000 rating. So Survival Hunter, definitely the most difficult spec for Hunter to climb. It's going to be the same as Devastation, but lower than Marksman and Beastmaster, as we can see, moving left to right. The next specialization, jumping up here, let's see what's going to be the easiest to climb in solo shuffle overall. It is going to be the Arcane Mage. Top end, 2900, very impressive. And as we move towards the bottom 100, it starts to fall off pretty hard. So this is not a specialization that's going to be really easy for people to pick up. It's bottoming out just a little bit below 2000 rating, which is going to hover you around where Devastation Evoker was, to the best of my memory. Let's just double check that to make sure that this is as accurate as we can, as we are just basing it off this data. No opinion whatsoever. Devastation Evoker was... just cussed me out at about 2000 rating, and Arcane Mage is cussed me out at about 2000 rating as well in the top 100, although its top end is high. And although a lot of people want to promote it and say that it is, widely better than others, this is easiest to climb for any level of skill. So if you're talented at Arcane Mage, you're going to be able to get to the highest ends of the ladder. Not so talented at it, you're probably going to struggle, similar to the other specializations, which is why I'm basing this off of the number 1 position as well as the top 100. Now, Fire Mage, relative to that, 2600 top end, 300 down from that, and the top 100 is only 1599. So far, this is the worst overall. It's top end, not really staggering above a lot of other classes. Definitely better than the tanks, but dang, dude, you're 1000 rating lower than the top 100 Demon Hunters. So I think this is going to make a lot of sense to be slotting you in here. Now let's move on to the next specialization, and let's line this up with our opinions a little bit at the end to see, what is this really, how this should work out. Frost Mage, 2722, finding yourself right in the middle of Fire and Arcane. Was kind of expecting that, but now to the top 100, we are only cutting out at around 1950 pretty similar, honestly, but your top end's a bit lower than Arcane. And I think that you're about where Devastation Evoker was on the bottom end. So probably somewhere close in between Arcane and Devastation. Now, Mistweaver Monk, let's get into some healers. How easy is it going to be to climb as Mistweaver? It's already been proven by data that it is more difficult to climb as a healer than any other role. Honestly, actually, we got to do Brewmaster first. I'm a bit surprised that that one showed up first, but 2141. So far, this is the highest rated tank. And in the top 100, you're only cusping out at 600. So apparently, if you know what you're doing on this, Brewmaster is going to be a really good one to go for. You don't know what you're doing, you're going to be lower than every other tank. So probably somewhere similar to Guardian Druid in this position. And now let's move to the Mistweaver, the healer that we were talking about. What's it going to be? Where are they going to be slotting in? This is just a really fun tier list to do. Just looking at the ladder, basing it off some analytics and what's going on. So Mistweavers are cutting up about 2721, so lower than the Druids and the Evokers in the top end. But on the bottom end, you're cutting out at about 2100, which is also about 100 rating lower. Where are we going to be putting you? You're 300 rating lower ish, I think, about 300 rating, maybe 200 rating lower on the top end. Bottom end's about 100 rating lower. So if you're at the average rating, it's almost about the same. It only becomes more of a gap as you get to the absolute top of the ladder. So this is probably fitting somewhere in between the B tier. I think BM Hunter was around 2100 bottom end. So somewhere around here with Beast Mastery Hunter on this tier list. Very interesting to see. Definitely the differences between the healers start to be more noticeable as you get higher rating though, based on the top 100 representation. Windwalker Monk, what do we got here? Ooh, cutting in at almost a staggering 3000 rating, similar to the Demon Hunters. But let's see how fast this thing drops off. It's not dropping off too fast for Windwalker Monk. You're holding a strong 2400 for the entire round. So surprisingly, Windwalker, it's 100 rating lower on the top 100, but its top end players are around the same rating as Demon Hunters. Are we really about to say that Windwalker is as easy as Demon Hunter? Because the data says it is. I'm not the one saying it is. The ladder is saying that it's pretty close. It's not exactly, so it's definitely coming in a little bit lower. But this is saying that Windwalker Monks are an S-tier specialization just off direct cross-comparison with the other specializations currently on the ladder. That was a very surprising one. Holy Paladins. Everybody's saying they're a terrible healer at the moment. 2850 coming in higher than the Mistweaver Monk on the top end. And as we move towards the bottom end, around 2100. So again, towards the lower end, Holy Paladin, not too bad of a pickup. Very close and similar to where Mistweaver is at the moment in comparison to other specializations. Not too far off, likely right in the running with Mistweaver as a solid healer. And the differences, again, between the healers seems to start to stagger a lot more as you get higher and higher rating. But if you're on the lower end of the ladder, it seems like you're going to be having a very similar amount of success. So for Holy Paladins, now we're moving on to Prop Paladin. Prop Paladin highest rated player is 2469. This guy has queued up a lot because you only fight other Prop Paladins. And this spec is very hard to cross-analyze, but 2400 on the top end, 1800 on the bottom end. So actually significantly higher than the other tanks, similar to Fire Mage, if not actually easier to climb as a Prop Paladin than Fire Mage, based on this direct comparison, right? Boomkin's bottom end, 1800, 2600 top end, Prop Paladin 24 top end, 1800 bottom end. Actually easier to climb as a Prop Paladin than a Fire Mage. But this is towards the bottom end maybe, but towards the top end it starts to be a little bit different, obviously. Now here, Retribution Paladin. This one everybody's trying to tell me, it's terrible in solo queue. Nobody can play it. 2800 top end. What are we looking at for the top 100? We're looking at about 2150, so about middle of the pack. Very similar to the other specializations that we have seen, like BM Hunter. Probably a little bit lower. I think BM Hunter was 2100. Let me just double check this again. Retribution Paladin comes in at 2150. So actually right around where Beast Mastery Hunter is, in the middle of the ladder here, with very similar numbers of cross comparison. Now moving into the next specialization, who's it going to be? Which one's going to be the easiest to climb? Which one isn't? 100% data backed tier list. We've got Discipline Priest coming in at 2800 as the highest, and then moving into the top 100 is actually 2200. You're actually a higher rating on average than Mistweaver and Holy Paladin, which is pretty impressive. Top end is very similar, if not actually performing better. So definitely one of the better healers at the moment in solo queue, despite some perspectives and opinions maybe towards it saying otherwise. Definitely a strong performer. Let's move on to the next specialization, which is going to be the Holy Priest, I believe. And this could be like the selling point, which healer is the easiest. We got 2400 top end. Ouchie, ouchie. see. What's the bottom end going to be like for Holy Priest? This is looking like a prop paladin ladder right now. 1900 is a little bit higher. You're actually about where prop paladins are. Holy Priest coming in as the most difficult healer to climb based off of the data that we have so far for solo queue. Definitely a surprising one. I didn't expect it to fall off that fast and that hard. Let's move me down a little bit so we can continue to see and continue onward. We got Shadow Priest. Oh no, guys, I kind of feel like the Shadow Priest probably going to be the caster. Demon Hunter would be my best guess here. And they're coming in at 2950. And what about the top 100 right here is 2500. So a 2500 Shadow Priest is a 1500 Fire Mage. Shadow Priest coming in as the easiest caster, directly tied up here with Havoc Demon Hunter. Now the rogue specializations, these are the ones that people like to say are the hardest to play, the most difficult to climb. Let's see if that is truly backed by the numbers. Assassination Rogue coming in at almost 2900 in the top position, and towards the top 100 is starting to fall off quite a bit here, down to 2250. Probably putting you about the middle of the pack. I want to kind of cross compare that with Feral Druid here. So just give me a moment, because that's going to be the best comparison. Is it easier or harder than Feral? Feral comes in at a higher top end, 2900, and slightly about the same. So honestly, it's about the same. Assassination Rogue and Feral Druid very closely matched in terms of ease to climb up the ladder. And now let's move into the next Rogue specialization. What's it going to be? I think that it's probably Subtlety, but let's double check. Outlaw Rogue coming in next, 2600. Ouch. A big cutoff on the top end here, kind of similar to what the Balanced Druid trend was. And then towards the bottom end, falling off pretty fast to 1700. So even though, Outlaw is seen as maybe one of the more like kind of just do damage specializations of Rogue, it seems much harder to actually climb, I think. Towards the top end, seems like players are making it work, but even the top end is not really getting surprisingly high, honestly. So this is probably coming in about middle of the pack. Probably a tougher spec. I think it's harder than Rep Paladin currently, given the circumstances. And the bottom end, it's actually similar to Frost Death Knight, so maybe even pulling it down here a little bit would make more sense with Balanced Druid, which is a really surprising. I thought Outlaw was going to be doing a lot better than that. But now Subtlety Rogue, this has been deemed like the most hard spec to play. 2750 top end, which is higher than Outlaw but lower than Assassination, and it falls off just about as fast as Outlaw, with the top 100 cusping in just under 2000 rating, which is a little bit better than Balanced Druid. It's better than Outlaw Rogue, obviously, and better than Frost Death Knight. So coming in about middle of the pack in terms of ease and difficulty, probably somewhere where Survival Hunter is at the moment. And this is just using data, not using the mechanics of the class to play, because this is all the players on the data going into the top 100. We've got the Elemental Shaman. How easy is it now to climb as an Elemental Shaman? We're going to find out here right now. We're going to expose the truth. It will all be seen. 2900 on the top end for Elemental Shaman, and this does not fall off very fast. Ellie Shaman could be a monster, as we see the top 100 at 2300. I think that is very close, if not close enough to be putting you into actually the S tier for climbing as an elemental. Probably high A, low S, but I'm edging it more towards low S, given the comparison to the other specializations. Definitely not as easy as Shadow, but getting there, getting pretty close. So Ellie could be a sleeper specialization given these changes coming in the next round, so take that into account. Elemental Shaman, now let's look at enhancement. What's enhancement? Ooh, cuffs me in at a 28-21, clean at the top, but falls off really hard. Look at that. Immediately down to 2100. So this seems like a spec that if you're good, you're going to be able to make it work, similar to the Balanced Druid. 1900, a little bit higher than Boomkins. Top end's a little bit higher than Boomkins. So probably coming in close to where the Survival Hunters, the sub rogues are at the moment for ease of climbing on this, given that the top end you can do it. There's people up there, but average players are having a lot harder of a time getting there on the ladder. Resto Shaman's another healing specialization. Where is this one going to be landing? Is it going to be falling off? It's going to be the easier than the other ones. 2799, similar top end. Doesn't fall off too hard here with 2400 maintaining, down to 23, down to about 2250, 2200, 2200 around there. So definitely a bit weaker than Preservation Evoker. Not nearly as poor as Discipline Priest overall, though. So definitely like on the bottom end of the A tier out of all the healers, given the data that we've got. Affliction Warlock, where are you going to be sending us here now for the Warlocks? The Warlocks like to say that they're also one of the most difficult casters in the game to play, so let's find out right now. Top end 2789, falls off real fast here, down to 2100, down to 2000 rating, a little bit higher than the Balanced Druid in both top end and bottom end, but it seems like if you know, if you're not really good, if you don't have this specialization under wraps, it'll be much harder to climb, but a little bit easier than probably, I think, around Frost Mage, lower than Arcane. I was expecting this to be a lot higher. It's definitely higher than Devastation with the top end, so it's probably higher than Frost, in and around with Arcane. I think a lot of people think Affliction is really good, but according to the data, not nearly as strong as some other classes at the moment in terms of ease of climbing. Now let's move into the next one, Demonology Warlock. I'm expecting this one to be the easiest, and the top end is starting to tell me that, of 2952, and not falling off too fast here in the top 100. It's 2400. We got a contender for Shadow Priest here, similar to Windwalker Monk with Demon Hunter for casters and for melee. So really strong competition here. Demonology a lot easier to climb at the moment, but there are nerfs coming, so this may change dramatically. And of course, you want to stay up to date with information and changes related to that, then do hit the subscribe button. Demonology Warlock has found its position. Now let's move on to the next one, and the next one is going to be Destruction. And after this, I think we've only got Warriors left. 2950, surprisingly similar to the Demonology Warlock, and honestly not falling off too far here with 2200. And this might just be popularity down to 2100. Definitely an A tier specialization, actually performing better than Affliction and getting pretty close to Demonology, if not maybe better than Demonology after the nerfs that come in. Destro Warlock, definitely one of the easier ones to climb as. Now the next specialization, let's move into it. It's going to be the Arms Warrior. How are Warriors doing? 2,900 top end. Huge numbers here. Not really falling off too fast, despite people, you know, trying to say that Arms Warrior isn't too good. 2,300, 2,200, starting to fall off down around 2,200. Definitely a solid A tier specialization. And you're getting a lot of buffs moving into the next patch. Like a lot of buffs towards defense and survivability and moving into the next patch. So keep an eye out on Arms Warrior, because we're not letting anybody sandbag here. This is 100% analytic data coming in. Now, the last two specializations, we got Fury Warrior in comparison. Ouchie! That one hurts. With that nerf to Slaughterhouse, man, Fury Warrior, you're cutting off 300 rating lower than Arms, and you fall off pretty fast, even considering that I think Fury is easier to play than Arms, down to around 2100. Definitely somewhere in the middle Bs, probably similar to Ret Paladin at the moment. And the final specialization, the Prot Warrior, is it going to be the hardest or easiest tank to climb on the solo shuffle ladder? Let's see it, and then let's look at it all. 2100, one of the higher rated tanks at the moment, similar to the Brewmaster, and on the bottom end, maintaining above 1,000 rating, which is actually a bit easier than a lot of the other tanks. You're not towards the Prot Paladin level, so I struggle to put it into C tier, but you're pretty close. Definitely the easiest tank, other than Prot Paladin, who is kind of a healer, to be climbing at the moment overall. So Demon Hunter, easiest melee. Shadow Priest, easiest caster. Demonology Warlock, second easiest. Windwalker, second easiest melee. Unholy Death Knight, third easiest melee. Ellie, third easiest caster. Resto Druid, Preservation Evoker. Feral, Arms, Assassination, Resto Shaman, Destro, Disc Priest, Mystery Holy Paladin, Ret Paladin, Fury Warrior, BM Hunter, Marksman, Subtlety, Survival, Enhance, Arcane, Affliction, Frost, Devastation, Frost, Death Knight, Outlaw, and Balance Druid. So really fun video to make here. Just looking at the data, looking at the ladder, drawing in there and trying to get some conclusions on like what is actually happening in the game aside from our own personal opinions, our own personal biases. Where are the classes sitting and performing overall, given the top end, top 100 on average in comparison to each other, to try and give you the best list that I can here to be able to climb the ladder. So if you want to be going after transmogs or mounts or just raiding or just have an easier ride, or maybe you want a more difficult ride and a more challenging one, which ones of these specializations are going to be able to give you the journey that you're looking for. Other than that, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up, comments down below with your thoughts. What do you think now, having seen the actual data? But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.